Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to The Lifting. With your hosts, Christopher Stephen Jacobs, Joanna Michaels, Katrina Schaff, and the Galactics. Here, we discuss the truths of the world around us, which are not normally known by humanity. History was written by the victors. No more. Deny the known. Manifest differently. And now, please welcome Christopher, Joanna, and Katrina.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. This episode was recorded on October 13th, 2019, and today we have a special guest that you may have seen before on some of our lifting shows and on the True You. We have Aurora from South Africa who is joining us. And today we are going to talk about all things Orion. So one of the things that Aurora and Chris kind of have in common is that they both are very interested in trying to figure out all of the historical dynamics to our experience and our expression. So we've been trying to, as you guys know, bring in thoughts and bring in discussions about how this all originated, who are the key players, all of that stuff. And Aurora is very, very interested and has been doing this on her own. And now today, basically, we're going to do a lot of sharing to try and bring in as much information that we currently know about those beings that a lot of people interpret are from the Orion area. Now, when you look up and you look at Orion's belt, a lot of people feel that maybe some negative races, negative entities, or something not necessarily fantastic that has come from that area. On previous lifting shows, we've tried to say, well, our understanding is actually that that is correct because that is the area where a negative group who wanted to come and dominate, control for their own reasons, actually broke through into this expression. So when you look up at the night sky and you see it, a lot of people have some sort of genetic memories or something knowing that that is the area that things were broken into. So that is why a lot of people are having these feelings. Now, is everything in that area negative? Absolutely not. There's tons of planets. There's tons of things going on. Did this group actually settle and operate from a planet in that area? Our understanding is yes. But it's very, very complicated. And so we're going to try and cover a lot today. We're going to try, and so this could run over an hour, guys. So we are basically going to try and cover the topics of what is our understanding of that area, what is our understanding a little bit more about the beings. Then actually, again, these were great geneticists and great creator type beings themselves. And so there was a lot of adaptation within genetics, creations. And so a lot of other groups that people talk about may actually have their origins from these creator beings. And so there's a lot of other players involved that actually could be running an agenda for a group of beings that, is not actually for our highest good. So, and then we want to add into this discussion, well, that was then, but how does it affect us now? And kind of give an update of our understanding of, how much power do they currently have? How are they using it? What's going on? To give you guys a more current day understanding of our current understanding of what we feel is happening by those beings. So Aurora and Chris, again, actually put a lot of work into this. And Aurora actually put together a nice presentation that we are going to use as well. So we're going to get straight into it. So Aurora, tell us what you know about those Orions.
First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate it greatly. I'm going to share my screen with you so that I can show you what I've got in terms of the presentation. Here you go. Okay. So basically, the information, can you guys see all right? Yeah?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Okay. This information is a body of work that's been with me for a very long time, and I've recovered it memory by memory. Chris, we can confirm about how we get at those memories back, right? It's constantly happening. So it's an expose of and deconstructing. That's what I would call that, because I believe that the way that to expose a bully is to really shed a lot of light on it. And by doing that, we then deconstruct its poison, its origin, and whatever it is. Okay, so an overview of the background and the involvement of the creation and DNA manipulation. Reference the timeline of the creation after the Earth was already created. The Orion Empire they made their presence after the appearance after the discovery of the Earth as M-class 42 planet. This is the third version of the current planet at that time. That means it is M-class 42 and a Goldilocks planet, to put it like that. So that really is then to tell you that it's rich in earth, air, fire, and water. So all the basic components or building blocks of life. Also rich in monatomic gold, a substance that can be used as a superconductor for the restoration of energy on a soul level. And this was during the erecting or putting in place of Atlantis, round about this, to sort of give you a timeline. The one must be referenced as Great Spirit, because I bring that in as well. I remember that Great Spirit, our true origin, the Great Spirit is the ever-present force or source of our existence. And if I say our existence, I'm saying everyone and everything in this universe and outside. So major force. Eternal energy that is our origin always. Great Spirit also founded the Orion Council. Later, the Orion Council expanded into the Empire after the second generation took over reign. There was also a Council of Trinity formed out of Sirius, Pleiadian, I may say it wrong, and other interspecies, which are now present on this plane. A portion of the creation story of mankind must be taken in account from before Adam and Eve. The Trinity had collectively decided to preserve the species who was ancient and dying out, called Lyra. Their genetic code or gene pool, a new species, was built or genetically created to carry forward the same Lyran gene code or base code. Lyra is the humankind's original gene code, the oldest race in existence. The Lyrans had progressed to a point of exhaustion or evolved towards a place of deeper spiritual quest. So they basically out-evolved and came to a point where they were going to say, okay, we're stopping now. And I say they're exceeding dimensions. It must also be noted that the Lyrans were the original source or genetic gene pool for most species, including humans, and is hermaphroditic. Okay, they were called the Anuman, a product of the Lyra. This is very interesting that the Great Spirit or the One had decreed that a new child had to be brought in. So humanity is the new child. Child is born. In this protocol was called Anuman, representing a universal melting pot of millions of gene codes from all over this universe, this particular one. The most obvious exception of the fact that they would have to be stable enough to carry the main genetic code of the Lyra species, as well as the spirit of the Orion, of the One within them. The Anuman was engineered as a multi-sensory, multi-layered based DNA being. In other words, imagine double helix times hundreds interwoven. So that's just an example of how strong where we started off as, or am actually. This multi-layered structured DNA code was meant to house a soul. The soul is the secondary component to the spirit. The soul is feminine, to be fertile and to receive knowledge, and the spirit is all. The universal experience is masculine because it is penetrative and seeds consciousness, to create as masculine as energy. The spirit was also present, but a soul was needed and to navigate this world. The spirit can also be referenced as the oversoul. So I've brought that in and given you a quote here from Ralph Waldo Emerson, where he says the oversoul is a divine spirit supposed to pervade the universe and to encompass all human souls. The term is associated particularly with transcendentalism. Ralph Waldo Emerson, The Oversoul, is an essay first published in 1841. With the human soul as its overriding subject, several general themes are treated. The existence and nature of the human. End quote. The soul was originally called soul and is the life force of the solar system. Chime in, guys, if you want to, okay? I'm not gonna...
Yeah.
Right, so please go ahead.
Yeah, what you were saying about the Lyrans, that actually confirms some of the things I've been seeing. There's a group of descendant lineage ones that I've been dealing with here that are in the Southwest. That they're the species that everybody knows that, and they consider themselves natives to Earth as well with us. And then there's another group that's multi-timeline, multi-dimensional that I've been dealing with that said at one point that they actually were created, or they were formed by what we understand as the Orions. So, you know, out of different DNA. So, yeah, and also your own origins also collide with that as well. So,
and the fact that we've said also, we agree. And again, I just want to let everybody know again, one of the amazing things for us in meeting Aurora was, again, different people doing different works, but wow, look at how it all gels. It, you know, seeing someone who's really coming up with pretty much, you know, the same thing, or each one can add on top of it. So I know a lot of people, again, if you watch Ancient Aliens or some of these shows, their current theories right now is that the Anunnaki came to Earth and created man. But really what we've said and what Aurora is saying is that the human species is way older than what people currently believe in this universe. And as we've spoken about before, that the amazing thing, if you can think about it, think of all of the different races who actually came together and in parts, I'd like to say, gave the best of themselves to create a species that almost could outgrow all of them. It's like really creating the best of a conglomeration. And that's where we came from. And so some people refer to this as the grand experiment, in a sense, because you have, again, all these races that have created to this new race, and what is their true capabilities. And so the experiment is watching us grow and create and learn and grow and bring in all of these different components that work contributions to our genome.
And also back to the Lyrans, I found out they're actually, to the Orions, they're one of the most hunted races that I've ever seen by them. And also the Lyrans claim to have actually invented the soul jumping technology that the Orions eventually stole and bastardized and started using that to create some of the false incarnation network as well. But some of the bad parts of it, not the good one, but the bad one, they actually stole that from them. They take credit for inventing it, but no, they stole it from the Lyrans beforehand. That's what the Lyrans have told me, that the Orions stole a lot of their stuff from them, and then turned around and used it to hunt them, and convinced other humans to hunt them and their descendant lineages. So that's some of the information they've given me.
That I would definitely agree with you. The soul was originally called SOL, soul, and is the life force of the solar system. It is important to not associate eternal life with the soul. The soul is, as mentioned in Deconstructing the Universe video, which is my video, that it's referred to as the anima mundi, or world wanderer, temporary connection to this plane. Now, when I started setting up this material, I started getting heavily interference and attacks from principalities or whatever from around, where they were actually trying to stop me from putting down the information about the soul. So I figured, what is the biggest issue that they have is actually really about the soul and the consciousness of humanity. So I noticed, not about the historical things that I brought in. There was hardly any attack in that direction, but it was more about the consciousness. Okay, so this is just a short little explanation of monatomic gold. Once the Anuman multisensory being was placed on the earth, monatomic gold was used to activate this being. Monatomic gold, brief description for everybody to read here, but I'll just read it as well. White powder of gold is a multitude of things. Its essence, the elixir of life, likewise philosopher's stone of alchemy, the manna of the ancient Hebrews and Egyptians, amongst others. In science, the white powder of gold is the orm. Do I say this right? Orm, i.e. gold, or any of the precious metals in a monatomic form, which can result in superconductivity within an organic body. So when the white powder gold is mixed in water, because of the elixir of life, the alchemist's dream, water is also a dream, also known as the golden tear from the eye of Horus, that which issues from the mouth of the Creator. It was also called as the spittle of God, not the word of God, but spittle. So there's an example of the powder, and there's its alchemical symbol for what it is. Okay. Now, there was a few things that came up during the development of the human race and the soul. And the soul meta-formed or developed. So meta-genetic or meta-form is something that starts to become stronger. It becomes more developed. It starts to learn and grow and become aware. It's like we become conscious. That's why I bring that in. Throughout the creation, so the soul started to becoming conscious, okay, throughout the creation of the human species, allowing for the basic personalities, a little bit of a breakdown to give you an example how it happened, to constantly grow and question, mature, stimulation from external and internal environments, to learn and become stimulated, learning, evolving while being aware of its original state of identity. This was a great achievement. The soul is also connected through time, and I put time in capitals so that we can see what the difference is. Time is not as it is now, but the time that I'm speaking of is spatial, hyperdimensional, and in sync with the universal cycles, so it doesn't get controlled by any particular structure. I think, Chris, you mentioned something about the world clock that you've also mentioned.
Yes, we called it the clockmaker. That's the AI that all these Orions were linked into when they tore across space-time. And it became the basis by how people got trapped in the linear time construct that we know of as today. And what it did, it resembled a gigantic Christmas tree. That same image you see with the Anunnaki and the giant tree. It looked like that, like complete with ornaments and everything on it. Yeah. And think of each one of those ornaments as one of the planets in the solar system.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and that's exactly how that got broken up. This is a massive structure that then broke apart into the planets. That's why you hear all these things about Saturn sending dark waves towards us and everything. It's not just Saturn, it was all of them.
Yes.
And they may be being disabled. One Christmas ornament, they're disabled one by one by one. But these also, some of the planets were constructs around Maldek at the time. Venus was, Mars was. But the rest of them were all originally elements of the clockmaker AI. So if people are just trying to peg Mars as being the evil planet or Saturn, no. It's all of them. I wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, absolutely. After this achievement, it became more apparent that the M class would now be used. Here's where it starts now, where the M class would now be used as a pool of genetic codes to be of service to other species, a home away from home. How's that? Mm-hmm. The elders of the Orion Council stepped down and allowed their second generation Orion children to take over the reins. The planet Earth was now called Urta. The Anuman had now been living on the Earth, but had started to die off. Now, that thing that frequency that you were talking about, Chris, about influencing through time, that malevolent energy, that AI type thing.
Yeah.
I think it had also something to do with the electromagnetic energy of the planets as well, which is probably why these guys started dying off. So I'm bringing that in. It may have had something to do with the time as well. I'm just throwing that out there, just as a thought.
In their universe, they actually began to die as well because they got separated from creation energy. So that does sync it. Yeah.
Okay. So the electromagnetic energy of Urta was too dense, and the Anuman was malfunctioning. There was no progression, stimulations to drive life as existence, as their bodies were not strong enough to hold the power of the meta-formed soul combined with spirit, like a ball of fire that could not be contained. So re-engineering had to take place to reconstruct the existence of the Anuman. And right now, as I'm reading this to you, I can feel a lot of interested parties.
Oh yeah, I can definitely feel the energy building here. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's like they're all. A split was needed to divide the species into two parts, the masculine and the feminine. It only became known as masculine and feminine at a later point, but they were then divided into two, so that they have more vessels to contain the energy. One couldn't contain it. The spirit would essentially still have the original blueprint of the other part, but the soul became independent and would develop as the timekeeper of all earthly experience there.
It's just like in the movie Hellboy, in the Golden Army, where there was one feminine, one masculine, and they were both irreparably quantumly linked. One died, the other died.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how
they. Well, that's probably that vision I had, where at one point I actually literally saw. All I could figure out is we were. It was the Creator Council.
Yes.
All I could say was a Creator Council, and they literally took, to me, what I saw, how my brain put it together was they stood in a circle, and an energy, let's say, ball was formed, and then it was like an atom. Okay, the spinning occurred, and literally like mitosis. What they did is they once that was spinning how it was supposed to be spinning, they literally went to different sides and literally like taffy pulled it apart. I mean, it's like mitosis taffy. It literally was pulled apart until there was two separate. Then in the representation that was shown to me, you can think of two beds being rolled in, and as they put them down on the beds, one turned into a female, one turned into a male. What was interesting to me is, but I'm going to say that they weren't quite cooked. Let's say they weren't quite cooked, because what they literally did is they put the male and female back together that kind of intertwined, as if you were with a lover in a bed, you were just all intertwined, but there was a sense of being a baby, really, it was like this full-bodied baby and needing its twin,
exactly.
to be comforted or to do, I don't know. That was kind of the end of the vision, but it was an interesting, I thought, process that I was shown of the Creator Council, literally doing this. I'm assuming this is what I saw is what you're now talking about.
Exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Correct. 100% correct. I affirm with you there. That is, well, thank you for that. That's good to know.
Yeah, and we've spoken about,
good
I've shared this
Thank
story
you.
before on the lifting, what I saw, because we brought it up in kind of the soulmate, because we were trying to explain that concept exists, but it really has to do with what you're talking about now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. That actually ties in very well with what we're discussing. Because right in the next sentence, the cells of the body of the first Anuman could not hold onto the frequency of the soul. The frequency was too harsh, needed to progress, to learn was needed. The soul was too strong, like the power of the sun inside the body of matter. So now I can see what you mean. It's like expansion.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. The engineering of the second human Adama. So after the splitting of Anuman, a second being was formed, a single-sexed body with a womb, with the natural functions to incubate life. That was very important because that's how they were created originally, in a womb-like structure called Adama, contrary to what is believed in the scriptures as Adam and Eve. That is the name that was given to them, Adama. Adama was much more versatile. Her other half, also called Adama, was masculine, to complement her as she would complement him, and to also adapt to original principles, which is what we were talking about, as from us from the beginning, the Great Spirit, original principles of the soul and the Spirit's functions. So that was what had to happen, okay? During the existence of this development, the soul would develop additional paths in relation to its basic personality and learn to seek and to understand. Along with this, also procreation. Procreative instincts derived from the soul's need to learn what was required to further the existence, and the soul's drives this necessity. That's why it's here. There were ultimately 7 main beings of each sex for the Adama male and Adama female. In total, 14 individual bodies. More species were engineered with regards to skin type, accommodating geographic area where the originals were placed. 7 beings were placed on different areas of the globe, along with other less specified created versions of themselves. The Neanderthal or Cro-Magnon, I'm just throwing that in there as well, just to give it kind of a time thing as well. Species were as a prototype being. Essentially, everything on this globe shares one spirit, comes from one original thought and expression. Typographically, associations with color, hair, eyes, body builds, blood complexities, all of these classifications were engineered in the first stages of Anuman and then Adama. Okay, so going to the next frame.
It's interesting what you're talking about, Aurora, because I had a vision sequence that I knew. I don't know how to place it. I'm just going to bring it up now because you may understand it. Because just for the audience sake, oftentimes I have these visions and I have no context. I just don't. And then if I talk about it, then other people are like, I know exactly what you're seeing. So Aurora and I have done this before. So it was really interesting, and I knew it was way back. Okay, so I knew but what I literally saw was, I don't know if it was a human or if this female had a little bit longer head, I don't know. But I knew it was about co-creating. I knew, something was going on, and I knew it was relevant to the human race. But literally the vision was quite short. It was literally, if you can imagine, a woman who was pregnant, and in my sense looking at it, I'm saying she's in labor. What was really interesting is we think of labor, go to the hospital, have your baby. They actually had a pod. It was, she was literally laid into a pod, and it was actually closed. It was very high tech. It was very something, but I thought it was interesting, but I knew it was related to way back when. I felt it was related to humanity being, maybe this is it, at the re-engineering stage. But I thought it was interesting because as they were again, the technology is as they were developing this or doing the genetics or doing the experimentation or doing whatever, it was very interesting what I would call these birthing chambers that these people were put into.
Yeah, that is actually 100% correct in your vision. When I remember that memory, I saw that they were all in pods.
Yeah.
And they were all being ushered things, whatever, a little bit of information put in there, a little bit there, a little bit there, writing the code, so to speak. Literally everything is being written, everything is based on the writing of the code, right through. And the pods, yeah, for a fact, I actually saw these pregnant women, they're all being flown over and placed in places where there were already other prototype species living. So it's like there wasn't exactly then this happened, then they died, then this came in. That wasn't that. It was like everything all at the same time. It was mixed up together, put together at the same time. Yeah.
And the Orions even took the bones of people that had actually died on Mars and on Maldek, took all the remains and started doing clone species. This is as during that time frame. You know, and also with the pods, I believe that's also where the Egyptians got the sarcophagus.
Yes, correct. 100% correct, because the Egyptians also tell part of the story as well, but they then bring the pod in as a regeneration or a recuperation chamber where you're supposed to get energy coming through. I think the whole healing thing also comes from that.
That's where people are getting the healing power of the pyramids, because underneath one of them there was the healing
right
as well. Yeah, Viking and I have spoken about that before, where you have the healing chambers under the pyramids. You know, people always think that's more of on a soul level, but they were actually physically being maturated, let's just say, in those chambers.
Metaformed. That's the word. I don't even know if that word. Well, I'm just gonna make it a word.
It's a great word.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, we make up our own words all the time in this business. So.
It's good. It's good. We got the creative growing. Okay, so pride, greed, and power. Here comes the bad stuff. Well, not bad stuff, but here comes stuff. After some time, it was announced that a great meeting was to be held with the Elder Council, the Orion Elder Council. Like we were discussing in the beginning, Joanna, where you mentioned, not all the Orions are bad dudes. Now, I also mentioned that the Orion Council was the one that was founded by Great Spirit, or the one. And the Orion Elder Council would announce that they would now step down, hand over reign, as was mentioned. Handing over management to their children. And this also entailed the other species. Again, also, Chris, what you mentioned, and Joanna, a conglomeration of a multitude of others. So they were then, so it's not just that the Orion Council was just a selected group of old people sitting there like whatever gods, but a conglomeration of species all across the board all the time. So it's not just one particular, it's okay. Celebration of the empire. So then the second generation children, they then are a bigger group, greater conglomeration of more species coming together, because obviously of the genetics that have been used. So a lot more others were brought in to contribute to that gene pool of the human species, and then created the Orion Empire. Okay, that's okay. Then the violation. The first violation was when a COVID meeting was held. Behind closed doors, that resources would have to be doubled. This was also out of greed, that these newly engineered beings would be more useful if they could be used to harvest monatomic gold. This was mentioned by an Orion second generation being. I'm unable to, or unclear to have seen who and what and in what frame this was done, but I do recall this very, very clearly, that they wanted to switch and give these little people that were now created some work because they now needed some stuff. You know, the typical exploitation that takes place. Soon word got out, and some who were still loyal to the Elder Council tried to intervene. I think you guys would be picking up on the energy very strongly right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it. The intervention, the blueprint for Eve, the Adama female, which would be the blueprint for the Eve, was injected with a serum that would give her soul the rite of passage to transcend. In other words, to grow. We're transcending, ascending. We're not ascending. Transcending is more the case, as in learning and growing. This creates neural pathway stimulation in the conscious mind to override as a higher energy form, to defend the mind, and also to take control of thought functions such as choice, free will, etc. The serum, in its essence, is the holy fire of the subconscious and conscious mind. So not just on this, not just the upper part, but the bottom part as well. The serum was administered to the being. It may also be referenced to the fruit of good and evil. Obviously now to learn what is good, what is bad. This serum is like liquid fire that opens the passages of the consciousness. Okay. So now, did you guys pick up anything on that previous slide?
Yes. So what I was picking up is when we were, they also depict these families in the movie Jupiter Ascending. They have them harvesting that monatomic gold powder out of people. It's almost like soul shards out of people. Yeah. They wipe out an entire planet, and they're just powder that they actually can use to rejuvenate themselves and bring themselves back into a younger form and also a more mentally stable form.
That's right.
In that movie, they basically wait till the civilization's like ripe set of crops, like what a soul harvest would be, like what you always hear about the soul harvest. That's they depict that in the movie fairly accurately, but in a more powdered looking form, like the monatomic gold, but it's still depicted accurately.
You know what? It's also interesting when I put that quote in there about the monatomic gold. There was a portion there that I didn't put in, but I'm going to explain it. They say that if water is mixed with it, it looks like semen. And in Egypt, there's the story about, who was it that, was it Osiris that lost his penis, and Isis?
Yeah, he was cut off. She gathered the part. She couldn't find that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is it. That's it. It wasn't exactly as macabre as the mythology, but that is exactly what was used. Monatomic gold.
Well, it's interesting. Again, you bring up some of the things because they have that Ankh symbol, and it oftentimes looks like they're feeding people. It's like they're using it like a spoon to feed people.
Yeah, and they're eating that essence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting how these things fit together.
Mm-hmm.
So the historical involvement. So to explain where the Orion, second generation Orion then went after this little bit of drama in the previous slide, which is also how the Orion Wars started. So we had a long period of Orion Wars happening in that time. So as that was happening, there were a lot of trying to stop them from going on with the stuff. So there were a lot of species that were trying to protect us, and some who didn't want to do that. So historical involvement, Earth coming and going influence, moving on from the stars to the Earth plane and identifying through the historical and archaeological references of the presence of Orions in our existence, not only in our DNA, but also within our existence. It's important to know that not all Orions are malevolent. I put this down in script form as well for everybody to read. It's not everyone is malevolent. We have to identify some key elements, such as the need to emphasize and influence beliefs one way or another. The present description of the Orions through history. The second generation Orions are an intraterrestrial species. So the reason I use intraterrestrial is because they are within us, some of us, not all of us, more present than and not. Depending on how pure your bloodline is, your energetic bloodline. This is where the bloodline wars now come in. So we had the Orion Wars now, and then now the bloodlines coming in.
And then the Nazis seeing themselves as the master race and pure beyond.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's interesting that the word Aryan is actually, and I looked it up, is also spelled Orion and Aryan. There's a etymological reference of the two words. You can actually get that same. Yeah. Interesting, eh?
Very
I can find that link. Second generation Orions interspecies, to the earth with empirical values, money, all that stuff. It must also be noted that, as said before, the second generation Orion is not pure due to a great deal of genetic interference and also manipulation and involvement of also a lot of species of certain gene codes, that the bloodline is not pure. Yet there's a strong drive to purify that bloodline. Doesn't matter whether it's in this race or in that race, it doesn't matter. There's a need to do that. They don't like to have this known. They don't really like anybody to hear that.
Oh, well.
No, everybody knows. They also consist of other species too. Therefore, malevolence and corruption is not only associated with reptiles or greys or Syrians, etc., etc., etc. The universe is a vast space and encompasses a great deal of energy and presence against the growth of humanity, and also then for the growth of humanity, which is what we must understand. These races were independent, but were also part of the original Orion Council that became an empire. During this time, they had also worked on a subsidiary program in the human development, psyche, consciousness, body and mind exploration, stuff where MK Ultra comes from, much later, aided in the first installation of Atlantis. Atlantis was installed in stages as the development of consciousness developed on this plane, on this earth. Okay, here's my first reference I can give to you of the first appearance of Orion influence, which I know comes from the order of Melchizedek. I don't know if I'm saying the name correctly, but just forgive me if I'm making a mistake of it. Okay, so I give a quote which I got from the Institute of CatholicCulture.org. There's a link down there. Who is Melchizedek? In Hebrews, although Jesus was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered, and being made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him, being designated by God a high priest after the order of Melchizedek. So it references a God energy or a godlike energy as a high priest. Okay? There's a reason why I've brought all of this in. It'll tie up in the next slide. In another quote is, we have this as a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that enters into the inner shrine behind the curtain. How's that? Where Jesus has gone as a forerunner on our behalf, having become a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So I'm just referring high priest. Mm-hmm. Next one, for this Melchizedek, king of Salem. There's something very important about Salem.
Yeah, and Lucifer was one of these high priests as well to begin with, and 100%. Also in Salem, Massachusetts, even as we speak at the moment.
In
a neutral zone.
In a neutral zone. Yeah. He actually runs it.
Yeah.
We actually, when we went to Salem, that's when we realized it was a neutral zone and got the rules of what a neutral zone are. And, he
did that so that his enemies couldn't come after him. But there were neutrality rules there. Even if they were around, they couldn't do anything to him. And this actually fits perfectly. Yeah, he started out as a high priest.
100% correct. Yes, indeed. Thank you for affirming that. Priest of the Most High God met Abraham. If I was a priest, I'd also create and say, okay, this is the Most High God. I am the priest of this Most High God. That's how the way that it's described in here is placing a subjective view on something that is supposed to reign, to have control over something else, over people. So Abraham, so Melchizedek met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. That's bad. It's like, okay. And to him, Abraham apportioned a 10th part of everything. So tithing, money. That's where money comes in now. Again, greed. He is first by translation of his name, King of Righteousness, and then there's also King of Salem, that is King of Peace. He is without father or mother or genealogy. They love to take that out so that no one knows. And has neither beginning of days nor end of life, so it gives a much more powerful presence of Melchizedek, or the high priest. Resembling Son of God, okay, blah, blah, blah. See how great he is, okay. It's important that we need to notice that, see how great he is. Abraham, the patriarch, gave him a tithe of the spoils to enforce this high priest order. Money was used to create an order an order of Melchizedek. Okay, it's beyond dispute that the inferior is blessed by the superior. So again, it brings that in as well.
So this is brought in obviously through religious texts, things like that.
Yes.
Again, we're spanning a time period that's millions and millions of years, and we're trying to give it. So between, let's say, this and so the Orion Wars went on forever. It was like a repeating cycle of warring.
Yeah.
Control was still maintained, and now how are we going to basically set up this farming type of planet, which is what we're talking about, some of the ways it was done. When we spoke about things, it doesn't happen to me much for something's taken from my head, but guess what? It doesn't happen to me much, but I'm going to get it back. So Steve actually, mentioned before about, again, some of these different planets, and again, how with able to influence telepathically, start to turn being upon being, and it really wasn't always like that. Who's the most important? One of the things that we brought up in our way, again, you're actually using actual real things that people can go and look at. We had actually talked about things like on Mars, when the planets and Maldek still existed and Mars was there, that there was a lot of mental manipulation. There was the people that were currently there, they kind of didn't like anybody else. They thought they were the shit anyway. And so the mental manipulation to actually take these people and make them think it even more and more. And like you're saying here with Abraham about kind of saying you, and then this line from Levi afterwards, that you are going to be the ones that I entrust the power into to oversee, and you're going to become great and powerful and get a part of all this as well. The same thing, that same kind of mental manipulation happened to the beings from Mars, where there was a lot of infiltration. But again, it would translate, obviously, we talk about Mars being earlier and the same thing happening. And then now the same strategy or tactic was utilized as well on this Earth.
And also, going back to this, for this order of Melchizedek, and also the King of Salem, priest of the Most High, I think also this goes back to the Enki-Enlil history, where Enlil basically created world religion. Enki went and created the money system, and it goes right back to this entire thing. Some people consider Enlil and Lucifer to be the same. I don't consider them to be the same person. but they're the of the same grouping at that time.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is all,
yeah.
trying to really show people, if they want to go, obviously, read things within the biblical sense, the strategies that were employed to cause division, separation, us versus them, we're worthy or not worthy. This is the strategies that were employed over and over again, I will say, in different arenas by this group.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also to say that I have no genealogy, and I don't have it this and I don't have it that. Then Abraham the patriarch gave him a tithe of the spoils, and those descend, blah blah blah, and then to create to bring yourself into existence by not having any particular, so that you can be used, so that you can basically infiltrate an order. That's exactly what you're saying. It's the same story over and over and over.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like on Mars, our understanding for those on Mars is that they have their own reincarnation cycle, each planet does. And they are constantly being recycled in service to these beings. They really don't have, I guess they've given over their free will, they like it, or they don't realize they have free will, but they constantly are recycled back into service for these beings. And the same thing potentially occurs with some beings who like being a part of this lineage. They're constantly recycled back into service for this domination and control.
Yeah, I actually think that the Merovingian bloodline thing has something to do with that as well.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I was told that Jesus at the time was trying to create a bloodline to combat all this other more pure, let's say pure bloodline, but from further back. But it eventually became corrupted, and now people know the Merovingian bloodline is one of the 13 Cabal families now. So
absolutely.
But this is where we say, and I don't know if you say this later, our belief is that Source actually intervened. There was an intervention, because what actually happened is that there came a point where a genetic anomaly, what we refer to as the incorruptible gene, where people don't completely aren't in that mind control. And again, it actually, instead of its own separate bloodline through Jesus, it actually infiltrated into a lot of lines, and including those lines that think they're pure, but they control their people. It's actually within that line as well. And so there really are people that would prefer something else occur in some of these bloodlines, but what ended up happening is when that was discovered and they couldn't be controlled, there was the slaughter effect that started to occur. If we find you, we're going to kill you. But that's a whole nother story. But it's great that you've got something here again that's kind of literally written down, showing the strategy that we constantly talk about of infiltration, and how it's again the how people are dominated and controlled and by infiltration of people.
Yes, absolutely. So this in retrospect indicates that the power and the presence of God in inverted commas was first introduced as a priest. It's exactly what we're discussing right now. It's like we're in sync when we did this material. First introduced as a priest, and that money was institutional, as seen in the previous verse, as tithing, to emphasize the order or the root of God, or the order of priest kings through the money from Abraham, who was already a rich man because of his children. Okay, we can thus so if I want to insert a spy, I'll send him to go to the richest guy, so that I can then influence that guy with my charm and then take over his thing, right? To give it as a very much more simplified way of putting it. We can thus establish that this is a title for the first temple of Judaism, and became the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek is a priest, a king of ancient pre-Israelite city Salem, right? This is not aimed at only Judaism, but all organized institutes that influence consciousness. There you go. That's the big deal. It doesn't matter what it is, it's how the consciousness is influenced. It's all about that energy. King of Salem, priest of the Most High, whom Abraham has worshipped as the Lord who created heaven and the earth. So he brings that story in. The original Holy Grail mythos originates with Melchizedek. So first king of Jerusalem, long before David, first temple. Okay, and then a guy called Immanuel Velikovsky referenced that Melchizedek means Zadok, which is also a reference to Jupiter, which then is also later referenced as Zeus.
Yes, exactly.
Warrior.
Basically the original one. Yeah.
Right. So in Genesis introduces Melchizedek, a priest of the Most High, El Elyon. Hebrews, we are told about Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Okay, blah. Priest of the Most High Yahweh. There, that's very important. So he creates a god called Yahweh. All right, and I can show you how it's created in the next slide. So from Melchizedek to Yahweh, the warrior god. Okay, again, this information that I've got here, I've sourced from Wiki. I've also sourced it, and Wiki has sourced it from archaeological website as well. Yahweh was the national god of the Iron Age kingdoms of Israel, Samaria, and Judah. His exact origins are disputed, although they reach back to the early Iron Age and even the late Bronze Age. His name may have begun as an epithet of El, head of the Bronze Age Canaanite pantheon. Cain killed Abel. But the earliest plausible mentions of Yahweh are in ancient Egyptian texts. We were just talking about Egypt, that refer to a similar sounding place named associated with the Shasu, nomads of the southern Transjordan. Some scholars believe that Yahweh was originally thought to be one of the 70 sons of El, who later killed his siblings and displaced his father El at the head of the Israelite pantheon. Now, there's a mythological story about who killed his kids, who killed his children, who killed his father. Was it Zeus?
Yeah, it was Zeus that killed his father, Kronos, I believe, yeah.
Right.
And Kronos is associated with time. And also Saturn, god of the harvest, all of that, yeah.
Okay, so you see, there's no originality. Everybody steals and copies everybody else's story. In the oldest biblical literature, Yahweh is a typical ancient Near Eastern divine warrior who leads the heavenly army against Israel's enemies. In the previous slide, it spoke about how Melchizedek was using Yahweh to take over Abraham from the Israelites, not so? Okay. So now he's right. So if you don't bow to me, then I'm going to kill you. If you don't slaughter your child to prove your love to me, then I'm going to kill you. That was always conveyed over. Okay.
Sodom and Gomorrah, if I find one worthy person in Sodom, I'll spare the city, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Next, over time, the royal court and temple in Jerusalem promoted Yahweh as the God of the entire cosmos, just because, possessing all the qualities previously attributed to the other gods and goddesses. By the end of the Babylonian captivity, 6th century BCE, the very existence of foreign gods was denied, and Yahweh was proclaimed as the creator of cosmos and the true God of the world, just because. There's a picture of Yahweh sitting there with the...
Yeah, and he's actually more of a distortion of creation rather than creator itself.
So I think what's really interesting about this conversation and the very existence of foreign gods was denied when you say that. Because what our understanding is, and again, I'm going to reference a show that many people watch, which is Ancient Aliens, because many people watch this show and you go back and you look at the archaeology and the finds of everything around the world, you actually see other creatures or races. And there was a transition point on Earth where, again, how can we get this farm to self-sustain itself, where the Draco no longer have to be present on the surface for everybody to see? You know what I mean? It's like there were other beings that were here present, maintaining the farm. Draco and other types of, even, again, not all were malevolent. You had, the ant people and different. So these other beings were on the earth and around, but we knew that there was a transition point where the farm, let's say, was more self-sustaining.
Yes.
So what I like about what you have done is you've kind of given an idea of how that transition occurred, where these other beings now could go into myth that they really don't exist. Because one of the things about domination and control is you've got to control the story, and you've got to limit people's ability to expand past it, because you'll lose control. So, if you only want people to think that there are only people on Earth, right? This is how the setup really is. There is nothing else out there. You've got to get these other beings from being present, walking around, by either intimidation. Some go underground for safety, or some are no longer needed and they just really aren't present. They're kept in a different frequency. So I just bring this out because I feel this is a great example of how and when that transition occurred, because you literally have now somebody denying there was anything else, and these other beings were thought of as gods, the Draco or whatever. So it's very interesting.
Indeed. So Yahweh, also known as Zeus, just like what we were discussing, exactly what you were saying there. Origins of the God's name: Supreme Gods, Lord of the Day. Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Jehovah, Zeus, Jupiter, Shiva, Tengri, Dev, Perun, etc., etc. The list of that name goes, and obviously you can see where it's obviously derived from in the name. The etymology is really the big deal, big thing here as well. You can see it's the same thing that's being reformed and revamped and over. So now, here's something amazing and exciting. I actually put the same link here. This is the link from an archaeological website, which also pertains to this clip. So archaeology, proof of Yahweh and his consort or wife. So now, gods are not supposed to have consorts, right? They're not supposed to have emotional, if you really take the whole mythological story, they're supernatural and all of that stuff. Anyway, so her name is Asherah. Archaeology found 2 pedestals erected in the temples, one for Yahweh and the other one for Asherah. God had a wife, Asherah, whom the Book of Kings suggests was worshipped alongside Yahweh in his temple in Israel. According to an Oxford scholar, 1967, Raphael Patai was the first historian to mention that the ancient Israelites worshipped both Yahweh and Asherah. And the reason I bring it in is to show you that so the next line is where you really need to look at. These gods were tied in with Gnostic views as Barbelites. Barbello, in a previous discussion that I've got on my video, is also divine wisdom. It's a name for divine wisdom, where sacred sex with a god was a popular idea in antiquity. I think they brought a female presence in just to justify their sex magic rituals, etc., etc. I might be very direct in the way that I'm explaining this, but this is what I could see. Although Old Testament suggested that sex was forbidden as a right to Yahweh, but acceptable with other gods. Sex magic rituals goes back to antiquity, forbidden in Judaism. Asherah gave birth to Baal Hadad. How's that name? Can also be given reference to the demiurge. There's a picture of her. Interesting. It looks like men are horses or something are holding her up. I'm not very sure with that picture. Anyway, the next is where the nitty-gritty starts. The plot thickens. So I've taken this excerpt from a writer and a researcher called Alex Rivera. The Hebrews' ancient ancestors were polytheistic, and Yahweh was one of many gods. As time progressed, Yahweh became more important, approaching the status of the Greco-Roman Zeus, Jupiter empire, and like him, Yahweh had a wife or consort named Asherah. Eventually, as the Hebrews became more patriarchal, here's where I'm trying to go with this. The women's god, Asherah, was downgraded and eventually written out to reinforce the second-class status of women. Now, what we've just discussed previously is also the sacred feminine energy. Asherah also referenced as Lucifer and Venus. How's that? Just because the fall of sacred feminine energy, Lucifer was also a high priest in high heaven. There you go, Chris. Spot on. Zeus's first wife, called Mete, also called Baphometis. Now, Zeus or Yahweh parted ways and turned her into a slave. If she is Baphomet, also correlation to devil, name of Baphomet means divine wisdom, complete inversion of everything, every time. And also referenced as Sophia, or goddess of divine wisdom. Hence the destruction of the sacred feminine and masculine energy within everyone by applying that information to God things. Remember, it's to influence the consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So this is how a man should treat his wife. Bah, bah, bah! You see, the God did that to his wife.
Yeah, and God did it, so it's exactly supposed to do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much what I've gathered from this.
And again, sacred feminine energy that you're referring to is actually not what is commonly talked about there in some of these movements of the sacred feminine rising again.
Yeah,
like what was said in the previous slides, that they had people to infiltrate in many areas to dominate and control. One of the saddest, things, I guess, for me is how that type of manipulation occurred within his history and historical texts. Like, you could bring Isis into this point and all of the sacred feminine teachings, when actually it really was a manipulation, which is what a lot of these women are known for. It's manipulate, Correct. Which is Correct. And this is how men should be treated, no differently than the man beating. This is how things should happen. This is actually really the role. And that's not what we're referring to, because that actually, in our opinion, and I think you agree, Aurora, is a bastardization of the sacred feminine energy, not
and the rules by which men and women live by.
Yes. So I just want to point that out, that what we're talking about here in the basics of this, of the sacred feminine energy, again, resides in each one of us, male and female. And we're not talking about like the teachings of, or the followings of, or the mystery school of, or anything like that.
Correct. 100% correct. Yes, a balance is meant to be maintained at all times. This is why, hence the destruction of the, I think I've mentioned that, using archetypal elements to, using archetypal elements to initiate power positions. Anyway, the movements, this whole the feminist movements, and the this movement, and a that movement, and a this and a that and a next, those are all just, again, as you said, yes, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm connecting with your points you brought in, Joanna. as institutes that were brought in to infiltrate. Yes, and it doesn't matter. Just keep in your mind that it's all about trying to corrupt the consciousness so that they can control that energy, so they can take it in for themselves. It's really about their survival rather than ours. They will never take us out. That you can be assured of. We can never die by their hand. We can suffer, but we can never die by their hand, because if they do that, they remove the food source, to be so crude. But that's basically where that is.
Yeah, they'll never destroy their farm. Yeah, they'll never do it.
Right, exactly. Orion's up close and personal. Here's the nitty. Here's the best part. Points to consider. We know that once there was an engineering in the genetic codes, that the concept of duality was enforced, but that duality is also meant to be from within, so without, not black and white, yes and no. From within, so without. From outside, go back in. That's how it's meant to work, in that way. As a state of consciousness, the micro and the macro. Through the soul comes time, from spatial to linear, as it is more familiar now. The five sensory gateway is also pentagrammic in nature and can be controlled. Five sensory control, which is five senses. MK Ultra, sex, magic, ritual, social order disruptions. Ritualistic addictions to pain and pleasure, and through pain and pleasure defragmenting your basic root of existence through beliefs. Alteration through enforced control. Energy and forces want to always be in the space of duality, as in opposition rather than in complementary. That's the big deal. Destroying sacred masculinity and femininity within itself, to bring in this frequency into mankind, to bring that in. So also has to do with destroying your traditions, which are tied into social family connections. Tradition is familial, correct? It's also based on community existence. So to disrupt that is to create individualism and actually separate you from your family, which is part of the defragmentation as well, as we can see.
Also to create traditions also from that fragmentation that are actually more harmful. You know, they recombobulate and create more harmful traditions. Yes.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. Energy and forces want to always be in a space of duality. Okay, yeah, I said that. Destroying sacred masculinity. Yes, I said that too. So not only do they have the power of creator gods, but they use it as well. The good news is that we are original. We must not forget that. Guides get neutered. I just added that in. Energy is paused. So when you're doing work with guidance or guides or soul assistance or spirit work, it becomes paused. If you are not whole, if you're not centered, if you're not balanced within yourself, if you are being disrupted, if your energy is disrupted, it's essentially your field that holds that guide in a whole state. Right, Chris? Mm-hmm. Would you agree with me? Mm-hmm. So if you're being interfered with, your guide can't root into your connection to actually stand, be present. Right? Is that how you would say it? That's how I understand.
But basically, it's a divide and conquer from one and their guides and one in their soul family. Yeah.
From within, yes, 100%.
Yeah, okay, and again, I just like to stress what the good news is, that we are original. So again, we're not here to scare everybody, because this isn't our goal to tell you it's all. No, we're just the opposite. We want you to be aware, because the good news is that we are original. We are a human race that was created by a multitude of races, giving the best parts of themselves, because really the goal is that once we realize and remember who we are and skills and abilities, and understanding the concept of free will and trickery and this, that, and the other, that you actually start to then gain better control and expand. And there is nothing that can stop that, because your genetic codes are greater in theory, which is why this is the grand experiment, than any of those originating races that may even have contributed to this genetic code.
Mhm.
And that's what we're talking about. So, the grand experiment of being in this and watching this new race, become more of itself and expand,
Yes.
which is greater than the individual components that contributed to it. So that's what this is really all about. How can we stagnate them? But by God, there seem to be awakening anyway.
Yes, yes. That's why the path, the pattern is incorruptible. I mean, it comes from, we have we are great spirit. I mean, we have great spirit within us all. That's that uncorruptible or incorruptible thing that is just there. I mean, damn it, human just stay down, but the human just gets up and up and up and up and up and up.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter. To give you an example now, going to the next slide, something in how they are influencing. Remember, I said it influences the consciousness. So now we take Orion pictures. How's that? It's just boom, it's right there. Examples of Orion influences creating duality or fractures in psyche. Through media such as Orion pictures, movies such as example Dances with Wolves, Silence of the Lambs, Meme Magic, Momo to be made movie. Okay, I'm going to explain this now by giving a few tabs that I've left open. So first of all, I need to tell you that I've found it in various resources here. Okay, so I need to go into my tabs. I'm going to show you Orion Pictures website so you can see what I mean about creating fracture consciousness. So this is Orion Pictures website, Anna and the Apocalypse. Okay, I'm just going to show you the pictures. The domestics, how's that? There's a direct domestic is home, not so. And what is this? This is violence in a domestic household.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates fracture, Gretel and Hansel, as opposed to Hansel and Gretel.
Yes,
Okay,
and it's about a witch that basically eats children, so that's very shocking.
Correct.
And
brother and sister being terrorized.
Mhm.
Okay, so the sacred masculine, sacred feminine energy being terrorized by a witch, wicked witch of the east, west. Child's play, freaking hell. If this is like so freaking obvious. Doll that looks like a child, but what does it do? It wants to kill you, right? And then this is like even better. How's that? Prodigy, a child who plays the piano the way that Mozart played is a prodigy, not so?
Mm-hmm.
And look at what this comes out, the fracture of the soul. Two color eyes, and the skull. Okay. It's irrespective of what it's actually all about. It just explains to you the imagery that they have on their website. And then the all-time favorite on their website, you see all the happy bunches here. Oh, well, it's just a happy family. Yay, yay. To there, what's that there? There's something there going on. Young girls. Okay. That's a bit weird, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Young girl. And then this. Have you guys ever seen this weird shit?
No.
Momo. Orion Pictures adapting viral hoax as a horror film. How amazing is that? That's just bad shit.
That is creepy.
So I'm going to explain to you what this shit is, okay? Okay, so Momo is actually a created figurine. And I've taken the next link. Momo is okay. So basically, this doll was created by a Japanese guy, an artist. Sculpture by Japanese artist Keisuke Aiso was part of 2016 gallery exhibit in Tokyo, actually called Mother Bird. But its bizarre visage was appropriated last year by a pixel prankster who concocted rumors about Momo's challenge, a sordid game that purportedly, do I say the word right, encourages children to endanger or injure themselves. Right. The hoax got major traction in February when Kim Kardashian shared the image with 145 million followers. How's that for control?
Mm-hmm.
On Instagram, and warned parents that Momo messages are hidden in YouTube content. YouTube officials dismissed the reports, but Momo had already reached full-blown urban legend status. Okay, so Orion's Untitled Momo. So now, because they then eventually shut it down, supposedly in 2016. I don't think they ever intended to do that, because this movie, Orion Pictures are going to create it into a movie again. How's that for resurrecting that same control, right? Orion's Untitled Momo project may widen the story, beyond the contemporary digital age. Just let's screw with the mind again a little bit more there. Aso's sculpture was rooted in the legend of Ubumi, a venomous child-snatching bird of Japanese folklore. There, that's that information about Momo. And then to give you a little example of Orion's pictures, so we can see just a little bit more. I think you follow what I'm trying to explain to you about the dual fractured titles of the movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Die laughing. Why would you die laughing? Heartbeat, okay? Etc. And it just goes on. The links are down there. They're on my thing. Midsummer's Night, etc., etc. So all of these titles all have dualistic components in it to fracture your consciousness. Haunted Honeymoon. Really? Really? Okay, so next thing. So Momo, let me just see if I've got Momo all covered now. Let me just have a look. There's more Momo here. Momo bird, Momo demon. Okay, that's what this thing looks like by its body. Okay. Really? It's okay, yeah. So that's just to give you an overview of what it looked like. Then some bad stuff happened where he was living in Japan, and he actually wanted to destroyed the bird. And he said he didn't want to be part of this whole internet game. And he said he's going to destroy the sculpture. So then, after supposedly destroying the sculpture, the children can now be reassured, Momo, that she doesn't exist and the curse is gone. Yeah, right, the curse. Okay, so here's what I wanted you guys to see. Momo's suicide puppet maker says kids shouldn't fear horror, blah, 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 like a Japanese, okay, freakish, what, okay. In March 2019. But it's still carrying on. So they don't stop with this crap. Okay, apparently there's a story of one of these girls that actually was around this thing, posed with it, and she actually killed herself a little while later. That's what stopped the whole story. That's what what
negative, let's call it uncreation force, the force of some of these beings, how that runs through items, or you know, and it literally, you know, so the creator, I didn't know this story, so the creator, you know, obviously knew on a spiritual level, holy crap,
right?
You know, when we talk about these kinds of things, again, guys, we're not saying that, you know, if people were balanced, and not fractured, watching you know, going to watch a horror movie or going to watch something like that, you know, scaring each other on Halloween, it would be harmless. You know what I mean? If people were balanced. What we're trying to say is that you've got an unbalancing going on, and some of the tactics that are used to reinforce the fractures, which allow you more to be dominated and controlled. That's what we're talking about. We're not prudes, okay? So we're not prudes. We're trying to talk about strategies that are used and how the public becomes susceptible to it, because currently humans are not balanced and they are being manipulated without their understanding and knowledge. That is what we're talking about. And I think another example where I know people were concerned and didn't know what to do about it is like the Joker movie. So we actually went and saw the Joker movie. And I thought it was interesting. So again, because of random violence that is going on, people now, probably because of this as well and whatever, people are starting to realize that once was thought as just fun and innocent, some of these movies or whatever, are causing some people who are truly maybe in a fractured, imbalanced state to act out. Now, what they've been focusing on are the big act outs, like the public executions and multiple murder. But it's not just at that level. There's multiple acting outs that occur that also come back and feed these people. What's interesting, I say on the good side, is people are starting to realize there's a connection. There's something going on that isn't cool. However, they don't yet really understand how to deal with it, because the answer would be ban it, don't allow these movies to be created, versus becoming balanced. So banning something or trying to do that actually now enforces people to be in control to decide what's good for you or not. That is not spiritual growth. That is still a mechanism of domination and control. So again, the reason that we bring all of this up is that we want you to consider some of the techniques that are used. And then this is where we've always gone back over, and we say this is a lot of inner work right now. This is inner work to become balanced so that this doesn't affect you in the manner that some of these beings want it to affect you, that is for their highest good, not for yours. So again, we're not prudists. I don't want to say that. We're not saying stop making fun things, but you have to be balanced in order to just play with it for a second and then be gone, and everyone's still healthy. There's no fighting. There's no anger being brought up. There's none of that stirring going on in your body that lets somebody feed off of you.
Yeah. If you watch a movie, I mean, I watch movies. We watch a lot of movies. If you watch a movie and it makes you feel like afterwards you find yourself fixating on it, there's a key. There's a first little sign for you to then just revoke it. Revoke your contract of agreeing that you are susceptible to that movie. And then that will kind of like dissipate in your consciousness. You won't feel like it's controlling you and dominating your thoughts all the time, like you wish, like you keep thinking about it all the time. There's a problem if it does that. So the next thing I want to bring into your attention is something called a pep or kick. Okay, these are characters. They're Egyptian. The Egyptian deity named Apep, embodiment of chaos in the form of a serpent. Now the next one is also called Kek in the form of a frog. It's the same creature. Okay, I'm going to show you the next line for you to have a look at. Let me just see what else is there. Am I following? I'm going to bring to you an explanation about meme magic and Orion Pictures bringing in meme magic. That's what that whole thing was about, that article that I showed you now, about that, what they want to do. And I'm going to introduce to you this, the truth about Pep, the frog and the cult of Kek. Okay. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do have the links if people want to read it up some more. What it's basically about is about origins of Peppy the Frog, image boards, memes, obscure, those things. Okay, let me just give it to you what it is. It influenced, supposedly influenced the election of Donald Trump. Okay. Peppy the Frog had become the unofficial mascot for 4chan's political discussion board. Okay, so people use pictures. Okay, chaos magic, also spelled chaos magic, is contemporary magical practice. It was initially developed in England in 1970s, supposedly, drawing heavily from the philosophy of artist and occultist Austin Osman Spare. A meme is a programmable picture that influences the viewer. That's the symbol for chaos. See, everything pulls away. Again, for the fracturing of the mind. Okay, so exactly what you've just said there, Joanna. There's chaos if your mind is fractured, number one. and then have a look at the pictures, and it makes you stay fractured, and chaos happens in your thoughts.
Do you have any, and you're saying this is the symbol of chaos?
That's a symbol of chaos.
It's an interesting thing, because I'm just curious, Aurora, and curious for you.
Yeah.
I'm having a reaction to looking at that photo.
Giving you pain in your head. I know. That's
I know, and I want to throw, and it's actually my cheeks feeling like I want to throw up.
Yeah, and I'm feeling chaos and the thoughts where the intention keeps wandering in multiple directions. So that's actually an interesting symbol, because that is exactly what happens to people all the time. They're being drifted away from being grounded. Yeah.
Balance.
You're drifting in all directions. Yeah.
Okay, so disclaimer, we will move away from this. Everything that I'm saying when I'm reading this for everybody right now, including myself, it is cancelled. Okay. It cannot have any harm on any one of us looking at this material. Okay.
Yeah. And I declare that as well.
And me too.
Right.
And actually the pain's now drifting away.
Yeah, and I can
cancel. It did it to me as well. The origin of meme magic is called mimetic magic. This is what I want to discuss. The origin is plus minus 30,000 years. Shamanic, divinatory, sorcery, etc. Shamanism initially comes from Atlantis. Okay. Orions have inserted or started Atlantis or Atlantra at that time. Examples to follow in the next. So here's an example of a meme. Okay, examples of meme magic or chaos. And again, as I said, every material from here onwards is cancelled, does not affect any one of us in any way. We're just looking at this and discussing the truth for what it is. They can morph perceptions into reality. Green, frog, greed, frog, kick, Egyptian deity. I spelled wrong there. Momo, seen here. The hoax got major traction in February when Kim Kardashian, okay, as I've read to you, Orion's Untitled Momo, okay, there you go. We've read that. Going to the next place, but I'm going to show you, this is to explain what mimetic magic is, and then I'm going to show you this. Let me just go minimize here. Is this it? Oh no, this is it. Okay, so to explain how important it was, they kept on showing these pictures. They created this meme. They had this little froggy there, Peppy, and they kept showing it to everybody on social chat sites and all over the websites everywhere in the world, actually. So it had either a positive reflection, or a negative reaction to you. You would respond to it in either one way or the other way, and that would then declare that would then give the polls, or that would help the poll to decide. That was literally a plan that they had put in place.
Yeah,
okay?
divide and conquer. It's one of those for and against. Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. Now, I'm not going to go into details. Again, I said people must just read this if they want to, but this is about the ability, this is about the tools they used. It's all you really need to know is sometime around 2010, a sad-looking cartoon frog began to trend among posters on 4chan.org and similar underground image boards. Shortly after, the age-old piece of online vernacular used to express laughter, LOL, fell out of favor on these sites. In its place, the new slang term for synonymous meaning rose to common use, kick. The origins of this trend are much more important. It comes from an odd technicality involving the Korean language and the popular video game World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft? Really? Okay, so two seemingly unrelated elements that would later give life to a deity were arranged in piecemeal fashion. I need to say this again. All of this other shit that they started to put together in pictures started to give the deity life. So in the same way is exactly what Melchizedek did with the Yahweh God. Mm-hmm. He gave it life by implying and saying this and doing that and putting up statues and all that shit. And that starts giving that thing life because people start believing into it. So yeah, it influenced the election, okay, and so on, and there's more stuff coming down on here. It's actually really worth reading this. Here's the Became in the Rage, kick, queer, coincidence of kick, answers obviously kick, remember how learned kick, blah, 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 frog-headed one, okay? See there? The knives. Okay. Deification of the primordial concept of darkness and ancient. Here, this is what Keck means. Deification of the primordial concept of darkness in ancient Egyptian religion. Like all four dualistic concepts, in the Ogdoad, Keck's male form was depicted as a frog or as a frog-headed man, and the female form as a snake or a snake-headed woman. As a symbol of darkness, Keck also represented obscurity and the unknown. There's chaos for you, and thus chaos. Also, Keck was seen as that which occurred before light, thus was known as the bringer in of light, supposedly. I don't think it does that, but anyway. It doesn't bring light in. Definitely makes you fall in the pit. Whatever. So yeah, it just keeps on explaining more and more stuff here, how it worked, how they put it together, God of Chaos. There's another meme, that sort of stuff.
And again, we're not saying all frogs are bad.
No.
Oh, of course not.
Specific.
This is one of those very interesting things, again, where sometimes in mythology or whatever, a demon will be created that actually they've given a look or made it look something that actually something as a race out there is actually pretty darn
benevolent,
good and benevolent.
And they're trying to give a bad spin to it.
But if they can corrupt your thought of it, then if you ever ran across it, you make assumptions, don't listen to them, they're bad, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly what happened with the whole, this Yahweh was arguing with his wife, and his wife was also known as Baphomet. And then because he didn't agree with his wife, he divorced her or whatever. I'm giving you a very watered down sort of explanation from what I could see. And he called her, he just changed the name and she became Baphomet. Do you see what I mean? I mean, Baphomet is then also connected to Sophia. Sophia is connected to divine wisdom. The Baphomet is that goat-headed thing it's a hermaphroditic being. It's not just, you know what I mean? So it's a scapegoat. Yeah. Yes, it's a scapegoat frequency bombed onto us. We must forever, as the human species, feel, and members in particular, who are less human, that it's our fault for some reason. We're the scapegoats. It's our fault, We're the child that was subjected and put down and left down there so now we live like that. So we live in a wounded way as well.
Right, the shame, blame, and guilt.
Shame, blame, and guilt. They're unworthy.
That people have so programmed within themselves. It was programmed, almost, let's say, an attempt to program it genetically forever and ever from way back.
Yeah, correct. Now I need to explain for where we need to really keep our eyes and ears open and be aware of this. It is a quote from a material, from a body of work which a guy has written. It's called Artistic Mimetic Magic, Opening the Portal to the Astral Demonic Planes. Artistic endeavors as representation of complex mimetic structures. And that's meme magic. Meme magic is mimetic. It's interesting that it's like me.
I know.
Me.
Yeah. It's all about me. Symbols embedded within works of art are representations of complex mimetic structures, which in many cases can be correctly labeled through viruses. Since other people being other human beings who have had any prolonged contact with society are programmed to some degree, large portions of the human mind, especially the thinking portion of the psyche, which utilizes language, are constructed almost entirely of complex mimetic structures. The complex mimetic structures in which form the cognitive linguistic, in other words, language, and what you hear, portions of the human mind possess strong defenses, both passive and active, against contamination by invading thought viruses and mimetic structures. So if you're feeling that someone's saying something to you and you want to hear in your head, you hear, oh shit, then that is that thing that goes and says, okay, that's bullshit. That is a mimetic structure that your brain creates for you. Okay. So a human mind will resist any idea which do not bind correctly within the existing mimetic structures, which form the framework of its linguistic consciousness. Programmed minds will only listen to what they want to hear. Okay. Therefore, it is seldom possible for an idea to be taught to another person directly. Ideas which do not fit into the binding points within a mind will be resisted and rejected. So this is why the fear of God, if you don't sacrifice your child, you will go to hell, comes in. Mm-hmm. Fear breaks down those things. It makes you then subjected, and you then agree to that because that's how you're being interfered with. In many cases, an individual will desire to convey a specific idea to another human being, but finds when offered in their most diluted form, his ideas will be rejected. So then, oftentimes the solution to this problem is to create work of art, all right, in which the artist's message or root meaning is embedded. By work of art is meant any artistic endeavor. Can be a sigil, can be any shit, can be a movie, which is traditionally considered to reside within the artistic sphere, right? I mean, this world is movie mad, right? Don't you think that this planet is like just, it's all about movies, always.
Exactly.
But be it literature, painting, music, movies, sculptures, etc. The artwork serves to focus the attention on the programmed conscious mind, which the root meaning through the virus or mimetic structure embedded within slips unnoticed into the subconscious. Now, I hope all of that ramble made some sense.
Mm-hmm. That talks about basic programming of people, yeah.
Exactly. So now these pictures that I've put up here about identifying Orions is basically what I could come up with because I knew I had a feeling that you, Chris, you would be having more material that you'd be actually adding onto this from this section, I feel.
Yeah.
So, right. Okay. So I want us to, so this is what I've got. Orions use vanity. They are extremely vain. And they use a lot of that energy as a sexual prowess. So it's draining your energy in the same process through your root chakra and then your heart, essentially. Examples and appearance dramatized in Hellboy and Time Machine, Jeremy Irons. This is what they actually look like as an extraterrestrial race. From what I've seen, my experiences, obviously they look a little bit better now, a little bit different, or their makeup is now more defined, so it's less. It's much harder to find them, to see them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I put in there, if you feel uncomfortable, protect yourself. Doesn't matter who it is, what it is. Protect yourself immediately. They can also probe your mind. They can flatter you. It's sometimes, mostly women who often are there to try and seduce your mind in a subconscious, subjected way, making you feel like this or making you feel like that. It doesn't matter whether you have a problem or not. They go for those things that they think might even be the slightest little bit of weakness that they may consider, or if it's a part in you that you haven't really developed really well, they'll go for that.
Or rectified within yourself, like if you haven't done the appropriate work, they use it as a means to get to you.
Yeah, 100%. So if you're feeling comfortable, protect yourself, probe your mind. They are psychic. They imitate your energy, and more precisely, they mess with your head. Just giving it to you plain. And coming to the end of it. So basically, I gave what I brought in was to explain where everything came from, how everything developed, what's been used, the same shit over and over. Magic, specifically chaos magic, is an attempt to change the forces of the earth in order to attain a specific set of goals. Essentially, by believing something is happening, you make that thing happen. These extraterrestrials elements use your consciousness through people essentially taking over their minds and soul frequency to gain power over you if you have something that they want. The beings are integrated in our society. Mimetic or meme magic is real, and it can control agriculture, the mind, everything. Real magic exists, manipulating the fabric of this world. It's extremely malleable. We've seen it. Those who have declared that magic does not exist have either been ignorant or have denied this to proceed with it underground. Therefore, it is absolutely important to declare at all times a sovereign state of consciousness. I should add in their wholeness. Know who you are, your original, deconstruct the controlling aspect of the soul, and how to be absolutely aware at all times of who you are. Mm-hmm. Discernment is needed at all times. And that is the end of my slideshow.
All right.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful. And again, you're right. Chris is going to want to add things to it. But again, the point of this conversation, because there was a lot about humanity, was, again, these beings do exist. It's what people think of as the Orions. There's all about domination and control. The Earth is a farming planet. And we wanted to try to do our best to bring it to now. What are the techniques that are used? Because anything that they can do to harvest the energies off of you to sustain themselves, really that's what's going on. And again, this type of conversation is not allowed because they've infiltrated so many different areas. It's not allowed in the main public discussion because knowing it, asserting yourself is how you overcome it. Mm-hmm. So we always joke because people are like, why don't more people know who you guys are? Because we talk about the stuff that actually
nobody wants to touch on.
That others out there really don't want coming out because it really actually provides the answers to the problems of how to move past all of this. And so, Aurora, the presentation was phenomenal. Chris and I never saw it in advance. We saw it as everyone else saw it. So I always love it again when we have in sync information. It's always great. And we hope that's helped. So I think what Chris wants to do, because there is a lot of interest in the actual galactic beings out there, is to talk about some of these beings and the connection to these Orions. Because it's not just, again, the one group out there that may be involved in some of this.
Okay, so let me get my script up here. All right. I will list for you now the very different types of Orions that I myself know about. The ones she was talking about, Isaac and I nicknamed them the Pretty Boys. And I've called them that a long time ago, so did he. As Aurora's mentioned, this particular type is quite vain and arrogant. They are depicted accurately in the movie Hellboy and the Golden Army. This variation also has been seen in Christian iconography as angels and in depictions of Jesus and St. John the Baptist. Some do have wings because of the fact that they augmented themselves with avian DNA, and thusly have also gained feathers and a crooked nose over time. This also applies to winged serpents, also known as seraphim, or the high angels. Some are pale white with white, black, red, or blonde hair, and can also have Caucasian features. Blonde hair, blue-eyed, just like the Nazis. Some
I said, yeah.
Okay. Some even have pointed ears, just like elves, since there is a mix of Syrian DNA. They ended up on Mars and in the inner Earth. They are the ancestors of also the 13 Cabal families. I'm going to read these next two sections, and then I'm going to go to screen share and show some of these images. The Lancaneers. This is a very interesting one. Though this group purports themselves to be from the Boots constellation, it is my belief that they are a direct offshoot of the Pretty Boys. They can look like pale elves and are very Spartan in their way of thinking. Since the Pretty Boys are so very vain, it is also my belief that they have a direct link to ancient Sparta, whereas the Spartans would preen themselves in the sun before battle as a funeral rite. And that's where I was able to link that particular offshoot group. It was ancient Sparta. So Syrian star beings. These are clans of these beings that are quite. There are clans of these beings that are quite good, just like there are long-skulled Anunnaki that can be quite good. But up until late, I did not even know the exact origin of the blue and purple-skinned elves, which is what they looked like. Fairies too. I knew they were on Maldek prior to the war, and that they left to go to Sirius. But this information came from a strictly Syrian source. From my current observation, it is now my belief that these beings are also related to the pretty boys. However, I see this relationship as more of a partnership, a pact of DNA and energy. These guys can also have larger skulls at times. Historically, they are depicted as the Moai on Easter Island. It is my belief that those are the depictions of the Syrian royalty from ancient Lemuria. The ones, the belief that those are, hold on, let me see, the ones the natives revolted against, making them move to the Marquesas and Easter Island, where they still served a pretty boy with wings that started the famous bird cult on Easter Island. So that's what I was able to determine with that portion of it. So I'm going to do screen share here.
Very interesting, Chris.
Yeah. I went from the other end of the globe. You went Atlantis. I went from the other side of the globe here. And yes, this is my desktop. It's all screwed up here. So let me see. But, I'm going to put this down for a moment, and I will open this up. And here we go with if everybody can see this. This is actually from the game Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls series, and this guy here, he's actually this character's a character by the name of Ancarno, and he's a mage that you run across who's extremely vain, arrogant, and he thinks he's superior to everyone in the mage college. And you end up having to kill him because he tries to use a big sphere to basically destroy the world with. So you have to
I know it's like stuff up.
And his race in the entire game has basically torn apart the world into factions. You know, you have the Nordic type people that they feel their god is being taken away from them. These elves take away their god from them, also named Talos, or like Telosian, like Agartha, that end of the planet too. So what happens is they basically mindfuck everybody into fighting each other. The Empire, which is further down south, and then you have the Skyrim Nords, which are up north, and they take Skyrim Nord's god away from him, saying, no, he's banished. We don't believe he's a god. They make a pact or a yield with the Empire, which they were at war with. They basically start a war with everybody. Then they make a pact with the Empire, make the Empire take the Nord's god away from them. Basically, then taking a single Nord king or Jarl, taking him, programming him to start a civil war with the inhabitants of the Empire. So these two sides are always fighting with each other and not paying attention to them here. Yeah. They're not paying attention to the people know they're the bad guys, but they're so enthralled with the religious fight or the false flag, which is what this king actually is. They actually name him Storm Cloak, which he's cloaking the actual storm of what's actually going on. He's a false bit of information. That's what the person was actually all about in that. But this is what they actually look like right here. They put them in the game exactly as they look like, which I actually thought that was very fascinating. And every time you encounter one of these elves, they are incredibly arrogant. They talk down to you constantly, and I always thought that was actually very interesting. That's also what the Lancaneers look like, just that they wear more of like a more tighter armor. But I've seen these beings in robes before too.
And they have the cleft chin.
And they have the cleft chin.
Lancaneers seem to have
cleft chin. Yeah, and they look exactly like this. And then we have
Fabio's chin.
Yeah, the Fabio chin. Yeah. And okay, then we have the. Hopefully this isn't covered. Then we have the angel look, the same thing right here.
Yeah.
And this more wing heroic look right here. which is exactly what these guys look like. Then you have this look, or they're like all buff and pretty and all this other stuff. The typical, angel, like, oh, worship us, we're above you, we're flying above you, wings, all that. And then you have, let me see here. Let's see if I can. Yeah, this is this is a later one, Green Orion. Okay, let me see here. I got them kind of mixed up. Sorry about that.
Well, you'll find it.
Yeah. Okay, this is the next one I want to read off here. I'll turn off stuff share and go back in here. Okay. Grim Reapers.
Yeah.
These are the decrepified and deteriorated Orion Greys, the skeletal beings in hoods. This variation was seen spraying crops the day before the Black Death began to kill millions of people, also known as a soul harvest. Harvest, sickle. Some are robotic, live and operate in harvester spheres, while others have reptilian DNA. In fact, most of these variations have reptilian DNA due to the fact they harvested the DNA to not only create the Draco, but to augment themselves. The Orion Greys are one of the most hostile variations of Orions and one of the most vampiric. And this, I'll go back to screen share. Okay, go back here. Yeah, and so you see this variation also with a wing. You have them around children, like in this depiction right here. And everybody knows the whole Grim Reaper look. This is where this whole thing comes from. This is shockingly Orion. And to go along with the whole harvest theme, something I'll say before we actually go on to the next section. We went to Missouri. We went to the Precious Moments place, where they created the whole Precious Moments Christmas ornament collection. There, going back to the whole Christmas theme too. We went there, and I wanted to explore the whole area. They even have a church they call the America's Sistine Chapel. And it's big-eyed children all over the damn place. Orion, temple to the Orion Greys, pretty much, or the pretty boys, pretty much. And I went and walked around the corner. I saw a diorama of Jesus up in the clouds like this, and a bunch of big-eyed children on the ground harvesting crops. Oh, and this I believe was a depiction of exactly what they were doing. It's Earth as the farm. That's depicting that there. And the energy there was horrendous on that spot. There was also what's known as an energy collector there. These beings like to set up energy collectors on Earth chakra points. They've built temples and churches. I've spoken about this a lot with energy collections of within cathedrals, churches, sacred sites, and they've bastardized these Earth chakras to basically give energies to themselves and get people to give energies to them. Through worship and through basically just walking onto the property and engaging in contracts.
And so again, part of the point of that, from our understanding, was again the hybrid program, trying to keep themselves alive. Can they make themselves look more human-like to literally be able to now walk on this earth and everything and still be in control? So one of the things was, altering the looks, because their hybrids would look bigger eyed and, have a bigger head, basically, out of proportion, was to start to change the psyche of humans to accept this. So if you can accept this and it's in there and it's all lovey-dovey and this, that, and the other, when the existence of extraterrestrials comes out, you're already set the stage for an allowance of an acceptance of certain races. And again, not all the races out there are for our highest good, but how can you stay in domination control? Well, you can try to look more like humans, and you can then try to manipulate them to accept you in while you still do what you've been doing. And so that's a technique that's been out there trying to be done, as well as some of the abductions where there's all this, we need your help, we need blah, blah, blah,
oh my God.
blah, 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 because they want the sympathies, of a complete acceptance as they try to transform themselves again.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Now also the fifth point I got on here, Orion second generation, the ones you brought up. This variation I believe to be one of the most dangerous types out there, due to the fact that they do not deteriorate, nor do they need to absorb energy. They just choose to. You see, they when they became cut off from true source energy, they needed a way to heal. So they created a form that could utilize galactic healing, like what you were saying. They created that form out in the galaxy, and they could now utilize earthly healing centers, and gaining energy that way. They choose to do it. There's some that have to do it, some that choose to do it. So there's both camps there. Either way, it's disgusting. So there are. Okay, let's see. However, in doing so, they lock themselves into their very own construct, the grand illusion. I've seen this time and again where they've locked themselves in their very own creation. They got stuck within their very own cycle.
Yeah.
So in that time and again, they've incarnated. Yeah.
Narcissists do that too.
Yes, exactly. They're very narcissistic. They're still vain, just like the other group. They're very vain. They like to talk about themselves quite a bit. You've brought that up, Aurora. Yeah. I've seen that time and again. There are Orions here and now that look exactly like us, that have also 3D printed new organs and bodies onto themselves. I caught this. This is not just second generation. Now this goes into another weird group of them as well. That was born from this second generation, as well as uploaded themselves to human bodies. They what we were saying about the Lyran technology, they use that to upload themselves to human bodies. You can also call a variation of these inborn, like you hear us talking about inborns all the time. Yeah. Okay, another group, old people with black eyes. I just put on there. This group is another. What was that?
Creepy.
Very the creepified ones. Yeah. This group is another prevalent group of Orions that usually will have muscle-bound humans around them for protection. If anyone tries to attack them, the programmed humans will usually intervene to defend them. These and the second-gen Orions are who we are referring to when we mention the two large pyramidal-shaped Orion vessels that have abducted people to make some think they were either in the afterlife, some of the SNP stuff, I'm not saying all of it, training for false flags, as well as sexual classes and courses. Run into this before. That goes back to the sex magic. These guys appear to be elderly, between the ages of 80 and 90 in appearance, with partial elongated skulls and black eyes. Some even have apparent scales around the eye sockets and temples. And this, okay, now we'll go into this. This is, I'll read these next two sections, and then I will go into the pictures then. Green Orions. Yes, just like depicted in Star Trek, there are green Orion beings. The women are very sexual, just how they are depicted in the show. Also variations of fairy women. I'm not saying all fairies are bad. I'm saying there's some, this is linked to this, fall under this category. The same as Syrian star beings and the jinn. We spoke about the jinn on a past show. Historically, the Egyptian god Osiris is the most famous Orion, and Isis the most famous Syrian, showing that both sides are actually one thing. However, Osiris is the name of a family and not just one man. But if we are speaking about the famous Egyptian god, then he was actually infected, well, let's say, with a virus that made him green. That was I found that out. There was a good person that got turned ugly. What I call the Draco or vampiric virus, green reptilian scales. The females also fall into the succubus category, separating you from your sexual energy and rendering you inert in that area.
But you do, when you talk Osiris, really you have to think of a good person who was killed, but the body was infected with the virus, and a different soul was inserted.
A different soul was inserted there. So
that's where you see like the white Osiris, and then you see a green one. Literally, there was an overthrow,
2 different,
and a taking over.
Yeah. Alpha Draco. Though a lot of the reptilian side hails from Aldebaran, This group is quite different than the dumb Draco factions, and they are stupid, folks. Those exist in cave clans, brand people, and then even eat each other, while the alphas have cone-shaped heads, wings, and look like a mix between raptor and crocodile, and a touch of Orion second generation, where there you see a bit of the face is slightly different. Unlike the other white royals that just have the raptor croc appearance, these guys seem to be able to access multi-dimensional states and have been able to access different timelines. So we actually will go to the next two, and then we'll go to the pictures. Half bug, half gray. I rarely see these, but there is an insectoid gray hybrid race out there as well. Though there are good and bad insectoids, this is a very different thing. It is my belief that they stole different insectoid genomes to come up with this variation. There are the other grays too that have the butt-like heads and stuff like that. Those are more robotic type of concoctions. But this is an actual like hybridization of genes, and I found a picture of one of those I'll show in a moment. Spook lights. These are not only generated by an Orion quantum computer, we call it the clockmaker, but are also harvester spheres in varying sizes. You see the spheres can grow to the size of a planet and shrink to the size of a pea. Think about it. Clockmaker equals AI equals Orion equals system invasion equals AI, becoming the rest of the planets in and after that invasion. Equals the tree of life, or bastardization thereof, in Sumerian iconography. The original AI construct looked like a Christmas tree with ornaments, steampunk looking, sort of, with gears and wheels. In the beginning, it had no essence until it stole it from us. So I'm going to go back to the screen share, and we'll go to the let's see, the green Orion one. Let's see. Just like in Star Trek, this is what this group looks like right here. Female is more of the sexually based, like this, and the male is more like the Osiris looking, like this one. I find it fascinating. It's like all right out here in the open. They even in the show Star Trek Enterprise with Scott Bakula, when the beginning of this one episode where you see these people is there's this sex slave trade thing going on, and the crew of the Enterprise want to put a stop to this. They end up what they think they're freeing 3 female sex slaves from this auction. They figure, okay, we'll find a way to purchase them, then we'll set them free. What they did is they fell for a scam. These 3 get on board their ship and start running amok and using sex magic on them. They try to call out for help from the male group, and they're like, sorry, guys, we would like to help you, but the men are slaves on our planet. And that's how they portrayed that whole thing right there. And I thought that was actually very interesting. I'm going to see where. Okay, okay, Green Osiris. Okay, Alpha Draco. Okay, let's see here. Get rid of that tab. I have to find the Alpha Draco one. And this actually will go back to while we're on this one. This is what the pyramidal ships look like. That was depicted like this in the Stargate movies and series. There's 2 of these left, from what I can understand it, that humans are on board this, along with different Orions are on board this, creating different augmented sections of creating different realities for people. Like if they want to mimic like an afterlife, or if they want to mimic if they want to have a bunch of like false flag programming, or mimicking some people that have been in the SSP or something, or getting people to focus too much on one thing, so people focus wholly on that subject and not on their inner work. This is the type of ship they have done this on right here. And there's Chris, 2 of these giant ones.
Chris, have you heard about the thing called Horus Ra? Something, it was written about the character called Horus Ra. It's part of that pyramid thing. I'll see if I can find it for you.
Oh, right.
It explains exactly that. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll close that tab.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like a mix between second generation Orion and Draco look right here. I've seen this before. They have kind of this weird, almost like an elfish look. But I've seen this look before, but without the beard. I've seen just purely clean shaven ones. But I've also seen the raptor, of course, raptor type of draconian as well, but I've seen ones with pointed heads. I've seen Syrians with pointed heads like this too. So this shows me there was an intermix of DNA on all fronts here. Then you have the of course the this particular like reptilian, classic reptilian type with the hood, subjugating mostly women, like is depicted in this photo here, or this picture here. And the fact they have the moon in the background where they have the major bases on right here. I found that photo I wanted to bring to light, because in one photo this shows the entirety of it right here. And so yeah, I thought that was actually quite interesting. And we'll get to that in a second. Oh, nuts. I lost my place here. Sorry.
That's all right. Just open them up and show them.
Okay, yeah, and then you showed this particular look of the pre-boy Orions with the and I got the angel, and let's see. Nope. Okay, here's the spook light. Sorry, I misplaced it. This is what you hear about the spook lights on dark roads. Also, sometimes the spook lights like to cause car accidents, gaining the energy from those encounters. I'm not saying all of these lights are associated with Orions, everyone. I'm not saying that there's a lot of elemental lights as well. Elemental species, the Sasquatch also have liked to use lights like this. But I've gotten pictures of these types of spook lights where sometimes you can see people sitting in them, because there's usually a being sitting in the center of them. I have a picture that I could not find for this, otherwise it would have been on this show, where I got a picture of a blue light, a blue orb with a gray sitting in the center of it. And this is when we were down in Yuma.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You can't see it because it's like you don't have to guess. That's exactly what you see. It's weird.
Yeah, if people are seeing a face with large eyes in the center of an orb, that's a spook light that is Orion based solely. So that is I thought that was actually quite interesting. And now I have to look at my list. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm done with the spook light one. I will show the picture of the half bug, half gray here. I know I'm slightly disorganized here, but that's all right. This is what I saw they looked like right here. This weird creepified look like this. I'm not saying all insectoids are bad or all like gray looking beings are bad. This is just this weird hybridization. These guys are actually quite nasty. So these have an Orion base too. This is one of their concoctions.
These ones, they have razor blade teeth. I know that, eh?
Yes. These guys have teeth. Yeah, the razor blade teeth. And also another portion of this is, when I talk about mimicker demons, and those are also a gray Orion base as well. These are creatures that were caught in graveyards, basically gnawing on the bones of the dead. They were getting the energy out of the bones. They had razor teeth as well. They look kind of similar to this in the face. When I see them, they look like a black cloud with the face that looks like this in the center of it, and they're surrounded by nanotech and nanites, and they're like this black mist or cloud. Those are the mimicker demons. They actually feed off ghost energies as well. They've expanded into people's homes. These are what people think of when they think of incorporeal demon. And then you have the Draco, which are the classic demon with the horns, but the ones with the razor teeth, the pin teeth, are not only this, but the mimicker demon looking ghouls as well, that once had a physical form, but then they drifted into this incorporeal looking form that people see as demons that cling into their walls and crawl spaces and in basements. And so I've come to actually find that's a more decrepified version of that species. Also, this is what some of these the fairies look like. Is this particular look? They have a Orion base to them as well, and also Syrian base to them. I'm not saying all these guys are bad, but I've come across green ones like this, across blue, yellowish gold color, purple, and white. White, just exactly like the Orion picture. And at first, I didn't know what I was looking at. And these were like some fairies wear clothes, some don't. And I've seen this particular white look, and some of them have horns, some don't. I've seen this before, and I was able to determine some of them had a bit of a reptilian in them as well. But there's different variations on a theme here. I'm not saying all these fairies and elementals are linked to this. I'm just saying they took some of this DNA and integrated it in, and made all these weird concoctions and made all these weird looks. But I've seen this white, I call them devil women, because they obviously are Orion, and they're obviously they suck the sexual energy out of people. They fall into the succubus category. I've run into them, and this also leads me to the last one of the last things I wanted to talk about. Nope, that's not it. Okay, here we go. Banshees. This was I'll just read this here. A banshee, a woman of the fairy mound, or fairy woman, is a female spirit in Irish mythology who heralds the death of a family member, usually by wailing or shrieking. Her name is connected to the mythology of Tumoil, the mounds, the big mounds, or the dot that the Irish countryside, which are known as side in Old Irish. This is actually I've encountered this myself before. This actually goes straight back to what I was just saying. The Orions. They also the mimicker demons also make a weird shriek like this as well. They do this really loud noise. The female ones have this ear-piercing, just god-awful shriek to them. And they wanted to associate that. They wanted humans to associate that with death, because they wanted to be able to harvest a soul at a particular time. So they would do this shriek, oh, somebody's going to die. That means somebody gave consent for somebody to die. That's how they set that up. It was a form of consent, like in co-creation.
Yeah, another image up there too.
Yes. This one.
Yeah.
This, see, white skin, pointy ear, same look. Exact same look. Actually, this one is closer to some of them I've seen right here. This goes back to pointy teeth and all this. Yeah,
I've seen that one. Oof.
Yeah, this is closer to mimicker demon look, but think black, but the pointy teeth. It's all variations on the same augmented theme. Yeah, and that's pretty gross there. So I'll get that off the.
Well, you're not gonna be able to do that. So.
Yeah, hang on here. Okay, I'll just go on to the next picture. Then we go to there's two more things. I know I said the last one, but this is actually very important here. This is the Tuatha De Danann in Irish mythology. See, you have also some similar pretty looks here, but they also fall under the elven category, and they fought a group called the Fomorians. And I was able to determine that Orion, I was able to determine that they were actually at war with these ghoulish looking beings, which are like here. See, the bigger head, they have the reptilian eye slit here, and they have that almost like kind of a Syrian look. The Syrians have like a blue grayish skin with the pointy ears. Also, they have the butt chin, the same thing there. This is another augment. This is more of a deteriorated ghoulish looking form of them. And the prettier ones here fought these guys right here in ancient times. And then eventually these guys were overthrown by humans back in that day and age. The ones we call the modern Irish actually overthrew them and banished them. And which I thought was actually quite interesting. Also in England, they had found some long-skulled people that had been killed by humans. At first, I thought those were bad guys, but those were actually good variations. Those were actually more of the Tuatha De Danann that they had discovered there, and humans had actually killed them. This was more of a time conflict where some humans had gone back to actually get rid of good factions of long-skulled people, so the bad ones could actually have more of a predominance in the whole time war and conflict.
I met Tuatha De Danann. I met one.
Yeah, so did me too. Yeah. Who did you meet?
I have no idea what his name was, but he was visiting me a lot a few years ago. And he was trying to help me with a few things. I did not pick up any malevolence from him, so I just thought,
Yeah, they're not bad. They're not bad. I've never encountered. They're the elves of like Tirnanog in Irish mythology as well.
No.
Yeah, and this next one goes right along right here. This is a character from the show Farscape that was on years ago. This particular red-haired being, they not only have her be able to make that shrieking noise that can actually melt metal, like you see nails bend and stuff like that when she shrieks, but they link her to, not only with the red hair, they link her to Irish mythology, but one of the main characters finds out they're actually genetically linked to humans, that they're compatible with human DNA. And when you see her superiors in the show, they're extremely vain, arrogant, and extremely condescending when they encounter their royalty. They mix the Tuatha and the Orions together to make those characters in the show. But I thought that was actually quite fascinating there. And okay, I am actually done with that, so I will take it off. Stop share there, and that's my presentation. If anybody has anything to add to that.
No, well, I think we added on. It was really good.
Right. So obviously this is going to be a very long show. We had thought, do we want to do 2 shows or just one long one? So we're doing one long one. And so hopefully people have taken some breaks. And it's a lot of information, overwhelming actually. But it's important for people to understand in general about how complicated some of this is. The goal was always domination and control, but many players came into being or were created to come into being to also be a part of that whole culture of domination and control. And that's what we're breaking out of. And it becomes really, really difficult when you're dealing with human beings that may be in duality. They may have an experience with something's negative. Let's say one of the ones that looks more fairy, and so they assume all fairies are bad, or something like that. And we try desperately to say, you know what, don't lump a whole group, except if it looks like a tall white, I would definitely stay away from it and just assume
except now. Except if it's Zeta even, they're fine.
Yeah, and that's kind of hard. So sometimes groups that are benevolent that look like these, that look too close, they're staying away. They know where humans are in their process of evolution, and they don't wish to cause controversy or get caught up in it, and so they know to stay away.
They know to back off a little bit.
They'll stay away a little bit until the proper time that humans are better at discerning all of this. So we hope you guys will have a lot to think about now, and I hope you've taken some of this in, can ponder, can look at some of the resources that was shared today, and just keep learning and growing. And that's about it. Do you have anything else?
No, I do not. I was hoping there would be a channel that would come in at the end of this, but it's more of a feeling that I'm getting rather than a direct channel here. I'm feeling a crowd watching this.
I do too.
But no one, I'm trying to see if anyone finally wishes to come through on this. It's more of a, hang on, I may have something, hang on a second. Who are you? I'm seeing a long-skulled individual with pointed ears here. Okay. And he's wearing like a not a robe, but an armored robe sort of thing. It's different. It's like that image in Skyrim I showed you, but it was like it has pant legs to them instead of like a skirt type of deal. Okay, who are you? And I need to see an open heart space here, please. Okay, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to feel. Okay. Oh yeah, there's a lot of different beings here. There's Titan groups here along with these other groups. So yeah, yeah. There's okay. Are you someone that wishes to speak? Yes. All right. Thank you. All right. That's what we wanted. Okay. And do you have a name, friend? Yeah, I'm well aware you have a name, but okay. Will you say your name? Okay. Now I know you're legit because you're dicking with me. Okay. Let me see. Let me see here. Yeah, he's probably learned from Isaac. Okay, let me see here. He's shorter. He has like a Syrian-like appearance to him, but again, there's a larger skull, or is that a hat? Oh, skull. Okay. Let me see here. But he's got like a little thing on the top of his head, though. There's like this little device. I don't know if he's using that to speak or not. Let me see here. I'm not going to let him in completely till I've analyzed him here. Let me see. Okay, Isaac, can you help vet this person as well? Okay, let me see. All right, if it's for my highest good, I also ask that true benevolent source creator audit this process. Let me see. All right, let me see. Let's see what you have to say here. Strong energy. And I feel that this person has the backing of these other Titan groups, so it's fine. Okay.
I can actually feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's okay. Yeah. Oh, did I misinterpret your gender? You're female. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now you're closer. I can see. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Female. All right. Ooh. Oh, you're very strong. You have a limited time where you can do this. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's weird. Okay. Hello? I have been known to some in your Celtic mythologies. I have limited speech in your area of understanding. I was actually listening to your conversations on the different variations and also the different magics involved. I myself escaped the turmoil of what you would interpret as alternate human intrusion, as well as the Orion intrusions into your ancient world. I'm not as old as you would think. It is in your basic Earth histories that I came to be within your Celtic myth and lore during the time and frame of what you would refer to as the Tuatha De Danann. There are a few types of what you would see as Tuathan. Those that look more human with no pointy ear features, as was depicted in some of those photos. Some of the more long skull types, and the more elven looking types, though we seem to share visages with Orion. I will now tell you that yes, there is a blending of DNAs because there was a theft of DNAs. Many thefts went on then. I myself existed on your Earth roughly 25,000 of your years ago. The world was very different, and also what you depict as the Earth as being 500,000 years ago was also quite different. But I digress in this. I will only talk about my involvement. In your societies, I actually interjected what you would call systems of ownership, yours, mine, but the bastardization of such sovereignty declarations is what also caused some divisions in your history. I myself was witness to the overthrow of empires past, and also what you would see as future. I cannot necessarily classify myself with a label, as you have been showing, and I know it is not intended as such, but just know that in your historical texts, the mixes of fairy mythology and the mixes of the battles between what you refer to as Fomorian and Tuatha are all intermixed and also all warped in some fashion. You are actually all more on target in this conversation by showing the entire breadth of the information. Though there is more hidden to your eyes currently than you know, you are actually much closer to that variation of truth than you realize. My involvement also stretched over into your Scandinavian mythologies and also over into some of your what you would refer to as Oriental or Chinese and Japanese mythologies, though I did not stretch as far into those as I did Celtic and Scandinavian. I did witness the empire you call Atlantis and the other you call Mu and Lemuria. Though I was not present at one of them, I was present at the other, and the fall thereof, and the division from outside thought forms and magics dividing the people and their ideas and the ideals within themselves. The idea now is, as was said, ultimate discernment, sovereignty, and authenticity. I and others like me have reemerged at this moment in your history, or reemerged from your standpoint. You have actually come to our doorstep and the various doorsteps of other beings. You have flowed along that river, evolving with the flow and going with the flow more than ever that you ever have in your entire history. I will confirm what has been said today has indeed been the truth as we see it. Forgive my stuttering. The energies are still not as perfect as they should be. But even in that whim of perfection, what you would see as perfection is not. Look at your own inner self and know that your own inner work is not necessarily perfect. That is more of a human tragedy, as that was said. What we mean by perfect is supreme, energetic conditions by which to communicate. That is our definition. Yours may waver. As I've said, I have limited time, so I will actually state my name or an abbreviation thereof and leave you to this. My abbreviated name is IO, and I am here to bring this communication at this particular time. I am not physically on this property. I am much further away from here, sending the what you would refer to as a telepathic stream or quantum link to this individual. We have not met currently, but we have all met in the past. I must detach and close this conduit now. Greetings and blessings to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh. Now, she was having a hard time communicating, actually. She didn't think in English. It was a different language. She was translating it from almost like a Gaelic dialect of some sort. So she was stuttering a little, yeah. What did you pick up from that being, Aurora?
Like, I think she was to tell us that she actually came because I felt like I think we needed to have someone just say, hey, way to go, with the information.
Mm-hmm.
I felt just before you started to connect with her, I actually felt a very strong presence of energy coming from behind myself, and then in the front, like electrical fingers over my head here.
Yeah, that's what it feels like too, over the eyes, and from back here. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I bring them in. She left fairly quickly. She had this like extremely limited window, like she had to do it on a certain rotation. So that's why she was very quick in what she was trying to say. But English, I can guarantee, was not a language she was actually completely able to utilize, like this Gaelic dialect she was trying to speak.
Our language is extremely primitive.
Yeah, she was very kind. She didn't seem like she was really royalty or anything like that. She was just, she seemed more humbled than if you were to bring through one of the royals. But she's, she was actually quite good, and all these other beings out here are actually acknowledging it. So, and even Isaac's acknowledging it. So, okay. That
was really good. Thank you. That was actually just right. That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Joanna, did you want to have anything else to say here, or are we good?
No, I think if everyone is good. Aurora, you have any last comments?
Not at all. Just trust yourself. Your first feelings, always trust it, and make sure that you get to know who you are all the time. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching this episode. It's a very long episode of The Lifting. Apologies for the length of it, but we wanted to make sure all the information got out. So, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. We'll see you later.
Bye.
You've been listening to an episode of The Lifting. If you've enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to visit our website at thelifting2017.wixsite.com/thelifting. For psychic services, please go to the Services tab of the website. If you have any questions, please send them to thelifting@gmail.com. All questions will be reviewed by The Lifting, and selected questions may be answered on an upcoming show. And finally, always remember, deny the known, manifest differently. This is your announcer, Paul Lawrence. Thank you for listening.